They say you're intense, too emotional, you care too much. But notice, they never say that when they're breaking, only when you're the one bleeding. When their world is collapsing, your calm feels like salvation. When their soul is noisy, your silence becomes sanctuary. They don't love you, they love what you do for them. Your stillness, your light, your depth, until it reflects back what they've been running from. They love the way your presence makes them feel safe, seen, held. But when you ask for the same, they vanish, quietly, coldly, like you were never there. Carl Jung had a word for this: psychic energy. Not something magical, something felt. It's what powers your empathy, the fuel behind every word you choose with care, every time you stay up late, listening, every moment you hold space for someone else's chaos while silencing your own. And they consume it like it's endless, but it's not. You feel it, don't you, that slow, subtle hollowing, giving so much, for so long you forget what it feels like to be full. And still, they say you're too much. But maybe it's not that you're too much. Maybe it's that they're too empty. And once you see it, that they don't love you, but the effect of you, a quiet ache rises. You start questioning everything about yourself. And that's where the confusion begins. There's a moment. It doesn't come all at once. It builds quietly. After another call where you listened more than you spoke. After another night where you stayed up, holding space for someone else's pain. After another silence, when you needed someone to show up for you. And then it happens. They say it. You're just too much, too intense, too emotional, too sensitive. And so, without even realizing it, you begin to shrink. Not your body, your soul. You dim your voice. You second-guess your heart. You try to be smaller, softer, easier to love. But something inside you resists, a quiet knowing this doesn't feel right. You start asking dangerous questions. Maybe I am too much. Maybe if I just cared less, I'd be easier to keep. Maybe it's my fault they leave. But let me tell you the truth, man to man. You're not too needy. You're just emotionally present in a world that fears presence. You're not clingy. You're committed. You don't want attention. You long for intimacy, real soul-level connection. And for people still hiding from their own depths, that kind of presence feels overwhelming. Not because you're wrong, but because you're real, and real is rare. See, what they called too much was actually your honesty, your ability to feel, your unwillingness to play shallow games. You weren't asking for too much, you were just asking for something true. But here's what no one tells you. People who haven't faced their own darkness will always reject the ones who bring light with substance. Because that kind of light, it casts shadows. And shadows make people uncomfortable. You were never too much. You were just a mirror, and they weren't ready to see themselves. Because it's not just about how they respond to your depth, it's about the deeper truth. They want your light, but they fear what created it. You notice it, don't you? They love your peace, but only when it calms them. They love your strength, but only when it costs you nothing. The moment your depth begins to ask for depth in return, they flinch. Because in a world obsessed with image, depth is not a virtue, it's a threat. You bring presence, you bring stillness, you bring soul, and at first they drink from it like a well, but soon they start to recoil. Not because you changed, but because you didn't. Your wholeness reminds them of everything they've fragmented. Your ability to sit with pain exposes their refusal to face their own. Your shadow, the part of you that owns your anger, your grief, your unmet needs, it terrifies them. Not because it's dark, but because it's honest. They wanted the light, but not the flame that shaped it. They wanted the calm, but not the storm that taught you how to carry it. They wanted the strength, but not the weight that forged it. And so, slowly, they pull away. They start to talk less. They start to act different. Because your presence starts to reflect what they're trying to avoid. Carl Jung saw this pattern long before we had the words for it. Psychic projection. They don't connect with you, they displace onto you. Their shame, their fear, their self-hate, they cast it like a shadow onto your mirror and call it love. But it's not love. It's consumption wearing a soft voice. It's validation wrapped in dependency. And it always ends the same way: they take the light and leave you in the dark. The truth is, they don't want to know you. They want to feel better. And you're just the safest place they've found to hide. But that doesn't mean you should keep shrinking. That doesn't mean you should turn your light down just because it casts shadows. Because real love doesn't reject your depth. It meets you there. And when someone fears your shadow, they don't connect, they consume. They don't stay with you, they feed off you. Until one day, you notice you're being emptied, not loved. They don't show up when things are steady. They appear in the breakdown, the chaos, the heartache, the crisis. They come to you like a storm looking for shelter, and you always open the door. They cry, they vent, they unravel, and you catch it all. You hold space like you always do, calm, listening, strong, even when you're breaking inside. But when they've emptied themselves into you, when their soul feels lighter, their mind clearer, they disappear. Quiet, effortless, like you were never there at all. No call, no thank you, just absence. And it hits you. They never saw you. Not really. Not the man with questions of his own. Not the soul craving reciprocity. They saw a function, a tool, a refuge, a soft place to land. You were not cherished. You were used. They didn't love your being. They loved your ability to carry what they refused to hold. You were their calm, but they never asked about your storm. You were their support, but they never wondered how heavy your own heart had become. This isn't connection, it's extraction. Not love consumption. And the most painful part, you trained them for this. Not because you're weak, but because no one taught you that love should flow both ways. You gave, thinking it would earn you closeness. You stayed available, hoping one day someone would return the favor. But they don't. Because people who see you as a well will always come to drink and never think to fill you back up. So hear this, you are not their therapist. You are not their emotional landfill. You are not here to fix what they refuse to face. Your love is not a service. Your energy is not free. And your worth does not lie in how much you can absorb before you finally collapse. But why do you keep allowing it? Why do you keep pouring into the ones who only take? To understand that, you have to go back to where it all began. Go back. Not to the surface memories, but to the subtle moments that shaped your nervous system. That house where you had to read the room before you could speak. That parent who was present in body, but not in soul. That silence you had to survive inside of. That love that felt like a reward, not a given. You didn't grow up selfish. You grew up alert, hyper-aware, always scanning for tension, always preparing to fix what wasn't yours to fix. So you became the helper, the good kid, the emotional first responder. You learned that love wasn't something you received. It was something you had to earn, with performance, with peacekeeping, with self-erasure. And your nervous system made a fatal assumption that giving too much equals safety. That if you're needed, you won't be left. That if you stay useful, you'll stay loved. But that's not love. That's emotional survival disguised as connection. And now, you carry that same blueprint into adulthood, still trying to earn what should be given freely, still drawn to the ones who need saving, still uncomfortable with the ones who see you clearly and ask for nothing in return. Because real love feels unfamiliar, and dysfunction feels like home. So you find yourself stuck in a loop, giving, fixing, bleeding, hoping someone will finally stay. But the pattern isn't random. It's programmed. Buried so deep, it feels like fate. But it's not fate. It's a childhood coping mechanism still playing out in grown-up relationships. And here's the quiet heartbreak: you think you're choosing love, but really, you're reenacting the wound. You don't want to be seen. You want to be needed. Because being needed felt like the only form of love you knew. But there's a cost to that. A slow, soul-wearing cost. You start to forget what it feels like to be chosen simply for being not doing. And the only way out is to go back. To feel it, to name it, and to choose differently. And when the child learns to overgive to survive, the adult builds a mask to stay accepted. Not to deceive, but to be safe. But safety isn't the same as wholeness. Jung called it persona, the mask you put on so the world won't reject what it can't understand. For you, maybe it was the strong one, the one who never breaks. Maybe it was the reliable one, the one who shows up, even when he's running on fumes. Maybe it was the one who always listens, the one who holds everyone else's weight, but has nowhere to put his own. You wear the mask not because you're fake, but because it felt safer than being seen. Because when you were real, when you were vulnerable, when you needed Someone made you feel like that was too much. So you adapted. You smiled when it hurt. You helped when you were empty. You said, "I'm fine," when all you wanted was for someone to notice you weren't. The mask kept you safe, but it also made you invisible. They love your calm but never ask about your chaos. They admire your strength but ignore your silence. They're drawn to your light but blind to the cost of keeping it on. And over time, something subtle happens. You begin to forget there's a face beneath the mask. You begin to confuse who you are with how you serve. You start to wonder, if I stop being useful, will anyone still stay? Because the world praises your function but neglects your soul. And the worst part, you start doing the same. You stop checking in with yourself. You stop asking, "What do I need?" You stop resting. You stop receiving. You stop being real. Because the mask has done its job too well. But here's the truth. No mask, no matter how noble, can keep you whole. It can only keep you accepted, in rooms that never saw the real you anyway. And that's not love. That's performance. And you weren't born to perform. You were born to be. And then, one day you can't wear the mask anymore. Not because the world took it off, but because your soul outgrew the performance. This is where the awakening begins. It doesn't begin with rage. It doesn't explode. It slips in, like silence. A moment comes, not loud, not dramatic, just a still, weary whisper inside you, no more. No more bleeding for people who vanish the moment they're full. No more softening your truth just to make others comfortable. No more being the safe space for those who refuse to become safe for themselves. You don't yell, you don't fight, you just stop performing. You stop picking up the phone for people who never check in first. You stop rearranging your life to keep people from walking away. You stop betraying your peace in exchange for being needed. And that shift, as subtle as it seems, exposes everything. Because suddenly, they vanish. The ones who used to need you daily, silent. The ones who said, "You're the only one who understands me," gone. Not because you were unkind, not because you changed, but because you stopped abandoning yourself to make them stay. See, what you thought was connection was actually a transaction. They weren't there for you. They were there for what you gave. Your silence, your availability, your emotional labor. And when you stopped giving it for free, they lost interest. It hurts, not because you miss them, but because you realize they were never holding you, only holding on to what you could do for them. And yet beneath the ache, something new rises. A quiet strength, a strange, unfamiliar peace. You start hearing your own voice again. Not the mask, not the performance, but you beneath all the noise. And for the first time, you feel the weight lifting. Because coming home to yourself doesn't begin with fireworks. It begins with saying no. It begins with letting go. It begins with realizing you never needed to be everything for everyone. You just needed to stop being nothing to yourself. And as the old identities fall away, something new starts to form. Not a role, but a return. This is what Jung called individuation, not the making of a better mask, but the unveiling of your real self. This is individuation, Jung's word for what happens when you stop trying to be loved and start becoming whole. Not perfect, whole. It's not about fixing what's wrong with you. It's about remembering what you abandoned just to be accepted. Your fire, your voice, your sacred no. All the pieces of you that got tucked away so you could survive in rooms that never knew how to hold you. Individuation is the quiet work of reclaiming that, not to fight, not to prove, but to become. You stop seeing your anger as a flaw, you recognize it as a boundary long ignored. You stop hiding your sadness, you let it tell the truth that your smile tried to cover. You integrate your shadow. You stop pretending to be light only. You become something fuller, something grounded, a mirror clear, still, honest. And people can no longer manipulate what reflects back truth. They can't project onto a man who's already met his own darkness. They can't control someone who no longer fears his own power. So you stop chasing, you stop proving, you stop bending. You no longer explain yourself just to keep the peace. You no longer give from emptiness, hoping to be filled in return. Now you give only when you mean it, from overflow, from alignment, from wholeness. And something shifts. The wrong ones start falling away not with rage, but with silence. They can't survive in the presence of your integrity. But the right ones, they arrive. Not because you begged for love, but because your being started calling it in. They don't come to use you. They don't come to fix you. They come because they've done the work too. They see your shadow and stay. They hear your no and respect it. They feel your energy and honor it. That's the paradox. The moment you stop bleeding for love is the moment it finally finds you. Not the kind that drains, the kind that recognizes. Not for what you give, but for who you are. They didn't love you. Not truly. They loved how your light softened their shadows, how your calm made their chaos tolerable, how your strength gave them shelter. But they never asked what it cost you. They never stayed when you were the one unraveling. They never loved the man behind the mirror, only the reflection they needed. And now, you see it, not with anger, with clarity. They didn't love you. They loved how you made them feel. But now, you feel yourself. You've stopped bleeding for connection. You've stopped shrinking for acceptance. You've stopped pouring into people who only drink and leave. And somehow, that's enough. Not in a settling way, but in a sovereign one. Because now, you know your worth isn't in what you give. It's in what you are when you finally stop abandoning yourself. If this stirred something in you, not your mind, but your soul, comment below, I withdraw my light. Withdraw it from the ones who only saw you as supply. Withdraw it from the performances you no longer need to maintain. Withdraw it from the belief that love must be earned through self-erasure. And send this to a brother who's still out there shaping himself into what others want, quietly breaking in the process. He doesn't have to keep bleeding just to feel seen. His energy is sacred. Yours is sacred. And now you protect it. It's time.